Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology turned podcast. Everyone, welcome into the program today. I hope that you're doing well. I hope that everything is going well and you're avoiding, hurricanes, World War III, asteroids, and whatever else may be coming your way. But everyone, hey, we're going to have fun today. This is going to be a fun segment. And joining us is none other than Nathan Evans. He's managing editor over at Popzara.com. You may recall, that may ring a bell because, of course, they help us with our event coverage as well as, just talking about video games, culture, pop culture, books, movies, television. This is kind of a potpourri, if you will, of just about everything. So, everyone, welcome into the program, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including past shows, future shows, show notes, archives, articles, and social media links. So obviously social media would be the best place to find out what we're up to and get in contact with us. If you have a company that you'd like to be interviewed on the program, you can definitely reach out and we'll do our best to reach out to those companies. All that and more, and of course contest giveaways as well. Everyone, hey, let's go ahead and bring on Nathan and get the show started. So as I said before, Nathan Evans is, of course, managing editor of Popzara.com. Their publication dedicated wholly to reviews on hardware, software, books, comic books, games. They have their own podcast where they cover the state of gaming every single month. And, of course, they have a great team of writers that just really do their best to cover what's happening in the gaming culture and just, news today. So everyone, welcome back onto the program, Nathan Evans. Nathan, how you doing?
Ben, welcome back. Thank you very much. We're actually this is the second time I've been on this month. Technically,
yeah. You were on but at the same time, it's been almost 5 weeks. So,
Well, look, you and your fancy math tricks to make it happen.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Nice to be back. Let's ring out September in style.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, this is going to be a lot of fun because obviously going into October, I think things are going to get even spookier. But with what's happening this past month, there's been a lot, and a lot of it hardware, a lot of it software, a lot of it just minor controversies here and there. I'm thinking, in particular, one about Twitch, and man, some of these, some of the people that were decrying those things, literal, what is that scene from Zombieland where what's his face is like drying his tears with dollar bills. Yeah, pretty much that whole emoji all over again. Or meme. But yeah, so but before we get started, let's go ahead and tell the nice folks about Popzara and what it is you and your team do there.
Well, what don't we do? No, I think you gave the preamble you gave was about as good as it gets. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. I think if you're into gaming, we have a little of that, a little bit of movies, a little bit of books, a little bit of culture. Pretty good podcast, which I think is going to get even better. We've been doing a lot of tinkering behind the scenes. Very excited about that to debut that. Our website looks prettier than The Verge. What can I say? Have you seen what they did to their site?
The Verge? Not lately. Yeah. Not lately.
I had kind of had a long-standing feud with them, but if you go to The Verge right now, just be careful with your poor eyes. Just be careful.
Yeah, they're very mobile friendly. They're very
garish.
Yes.
They bragged about it. They made multiple videos how they were very proud of experimenting with color, and they probably shouldn't.
Did they? It looks pretty dark and not very colorful.
The experiment, I think, was to turn the web into sort of more of a magazine layout thing, and to their credit, they did a pretty good job of that. But I think what happened is they cut corners, and I think they said the future is blogging, so they've kind of come full circle.
Not only did they cut corners, there's not a single corner there. Everything's rounded off. I will say that's very much true.
Rounded edges. I mean, Who am I to talk? I mean, I run a website that looks like cubes. So,
but hey, you know what? That's easy to digest at a glance. But let's go ahead and jump into a number of our stories today, because a lot of these we haven't covered yet. But everyone, let's. You know what? I kind of teased the Twitch thing, and I think we can cover that pretty quickly. So for everyone kind of out of the loop, Twitch, their president or CEO, whoever it was, their leadership sent out an email, and at 3 a.m., middle of the night, to essentially tell everyone that for the longest time, whenever they onboard someone, whenever they build a big enough audience and they start to really generate revenue for Twitch, they had this deal that they were not allowed to talk about. They were not allowed to talk about their rev split, their revenue split, because everyone gets a standard 50-50 when you kind of get on there. For every $5 sub, the platform gets $2.50 and the streamer gets $2.50. If you were a large enough person and you generated enough revenue, that would then change to 70-30. So the streamer would get 70% and then the website would get 30%. They are phasing that out, and I know a lot of you are thinking, well, Ben, that's like $1. Who really cares? You have to remember that some of these streamers are in the neighborhood of, some of the larger ones can have 20, 30,000, and some streamers were able to garner as much as like 250, 300,000 subs at a time. Not saying that's consistent, but at peak, it can definitely get up to that, and you're talking about millions of dollars a year. It's a pretty big switch, and obviously a lot of these much bigger streamers are just looking at this saying, okay, so you just cut my pay by insert X amount of hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. What are you giving back to me? And well, Nathan, I think that's kind of where everything fell apart, because it was a lot of drawback and not a lot of benefit. It's not like they're saying, we're going to give you a better platform, we're going to let you stream at a higher bit rate, we're going to do more advertising on your behalf. No, it was just, well, for the sake of solvency, we're going to give you a pay cut. And don't forget, we're all in this together. So, Nathan.
Well, I liked how the message also included, we're going to give our top streamers a chance to recoup some of that. We've got a 5% earnings split. Like, you're going to go from at best, you're going to go from 70 to 55. I mean, you're going to be losing money on this.
Actually, the 55 was on the ad split. And to be fair, and this talks and that goes into a little bit about advertising, how that's changing. But a lot of these top streamers, even though they have 10, 20, 30,000 subscribers, which again kind of works out to, what is that, like 50,000 a month or something like that, they still earn the bulk of their revenue through advertising, through pressing a button and giving you 15-second ads. That really goes to show how much that pays for Twitch itself as well.
Well, I mean, if we're going to be fair, let's get Twitch's argument out of the way. They said server costs necessitated this, which is interesting because I think they use AWS, which is run by their parent company, Amazon. Mm-hmm. And Amazon, of course, purchased Twitch back in 2014 for like slightly less than $1 billion.
Yeah.
And I think the promise is, when you have this synergistic combination of companies, is that we can take advantage of these relationships we have with each other. And I think what you're finding out is that they're not really that close. There's been a lot of problems with the Twitch Amazon family branding. You've noticed this too, right?
Yeah. They and of course they try to roll in Amazon Prime and Prime Gaming, and you can sub someone for free and stuff like that. But still, I think they were a little misleading, and I think a lot of people picked up on this as well, Nathan, that they gave any random user go to Amazon Web Services and see how much 1 gigabyte of data streaming would cost you. And that's the price that the CEO gave. Nathan, I refuse to believe there's not a better, like, even if you're Google, Microsoft, if you're, who makes Java?
Well, I think it was about my son, wasn't it, years ago? It's
but anyways,
you're the first human, Ben. You're the first person I've heard say Java in a long time. Like, I almost forgot Java and JavaScript existed.
But still, either way, what I'm saying is, if you're a large platform, let alone a large platform that you own, you're going to get a better rate than what's posted on the website.
Let me tell you what I actually think this is more similar to. I actually think this is more similar to the whole the billionaire scam that billionaire companies of CEOs have used for many, many years, like Bill Gates, and I think Facebook as well, or Meta, whatever you want to call them, where they will create a charity and they say, I'm going to give all my money to charity, and I'm going to give all my money to the charity that bears my name. So I'm going to make the Nathan Evans charity, and I'm going to give all my billions to the Nathan Evans charity. Therefore, I don't have to pay taxes on it anymore. But when I need that money, I'll borrow it from the charity to do charitable work. It's a scam. It's a complete scam. I think the clothing company Patagonia, or however you pronounce them, just recently did the same thing. Patagonia. I don't even know, because that hippie stuff is not for me. But what I'm saying is, when you have this, you look at the revenue split, and they're basing a lot of it on server costs or whatever. Amazon owns it. There's a better way to do this. There's something else going on. I can't tell you exactly what it is because I don't know. But I'll tell you this: from all appearances, streaming is not the moneymaker that people seem to think it is. Because at the end of the day, you have influencers, and that's what these streamers are. They're influencers. They're basically living ads. Let's be honest. Mm-hmm. If you're streaming a game, it's like esports. There's very little difference between esports and streaming. Can we say that? They both do the same thing. They're getting eyeballs on the screen, which is the goal. You may be playing competitively. You may be playing by yourself. And so, but at the end of the day, you're playing a product. So you're advertising the game. You're calling advertising from fans, and you're getting sponsorships. That's the same thing. Like, there's no difference. Only one's more competitive than the next. Esports, I told you, I don't think esports has got the traction people seem to think it has. I just don't see it. I think it's more in line with like professional chess than a professional sports, in more ways than one. Although professional gaming has less anal beads, I must say that.
That's a way to put it.
I'm not gonna. You saw that story too, didn't you?
I actually missed that one, but let's not bring that one up.
I was going to say professional chess is a lot more hardcore than I thought it was, but yeah, I didn't bring. Okay, anyway, look that up on your own time.
Yeah.
But anyway, when you have this, so what you're basically saying is you have these people who are watching this. You want to get subscribers. You had this competition between Twitch and what was it, Mixer? That was Microsoft's thing before they shut it down. We're going to pay for this. We're going to pay for this. Clearly, these people, Ninja, and I can't even pronounce their names, they're aware of this. They were aware of this revenue split that a lot of people weren't aware of it. So this is not going to affect, if you're sitting in front of your Twitch, this is not going to affect you at all, not even a little bit. But if you're at the top tier where you're considered, top talent, right, then I don't know what happens. Where are you going to go? Are you going to go to YouTube? I mean, Facebook shut down theirs. I mean, the options are dwindling.
Yeah, and a lot of people point out that YouTube is still offering 70-30, but I think that they were only offering it, and we'll see in a couple months, but I think YouTube was only offering that because they knew that's what Twitch was offering. As now that this is out there, I would not be surprised if, in the next couple of months, we see Google and their streaming gaming, their gaming streaming revenue split drop to 50-50 as well.
Well, here's the thing. Amazon is a big company, of course, and they own a lot of little things. They own Twitch. They own Amazon Music. They own AWS. They own Luna. They own all this stuff. And you know what? None of it works together. None of it. And so the question is, how come I can go on Amazon Prime or I go on Amazon Video and I don't see anything for Twitch really? And how come Twitch can't get music royalty licenses for streaming music? How come there's so many restrictions? So what's the whole point of having all these companies under the same umbrella if it doesn't keep you from getting wet? It's been a horrible mismanagement of services. It's been absolutely zero. What's the word I'm looking for? It's been zero sort of articulating the advantages.
Right.
Like there's no advantage. There's no advantage. That would be like me getting Office 365 and using Gmail on my BlackBerry as I'm using my Android app to check my Apple Mail. It's like there's no benefit when everything's not under the roof. And I think you're going to see it. I think another story we're going to talk about is another example of that too. And you know where I'm kind of heading. Right. It's like these companies, they throw money at something, but they don't understand what they're doing. And
I think what you're kind of alluding to, if I'm not mistaken, is maybe Stadia.
Well, I mean, you've asked me about Stadia many times. Google Stadia, the streaming service. Mm-hmm. I mentioned Luna from Amazon. People don't even know that exists. Because these are not products; these are experiments. This is how Google does a beta test, and you're the beta tester. I've told you from the beginning, I think Stadia works the best, and I think it's doomed. I've told you that before. Mm-hmm. Everybody knew this product was doomed. It was DOA, and it was DOA for all the reasons I just named you on Amazon. There's no synergy. There's absolutely no sense of support from this thing. And I mean, you go to Stadia right now. Go to Stadia's website right now. They're still taking subscriptions. Right now. Go to it.
Yeah, that's crazy. True. Try it for free for 1 month. Yep. I don't think you can sign up, but there's no branding there. It's like these are forgotten products. I think for a lot of these services, and I know that they did this for like Google Plus, where eventually they shut down sign up for new stuff, and then everyone who still has it, they'll keep it going as like a legacy service, but obviously loses a ton of functionality. So,
but like this is, I mean, you and I were talking before the show about how I think innovation works best when it's in smaller quadrants. Mm-hmm. I don't want to use the word segregation. But segregating different business models is usually a way to go. You have companies that are more in line with their own expertise. That's why you have smaller companies like Apple. I know Apple's not a small company, but Apple doesn't do all the things necessarily that Amazon does, or as proactively. I think a good example would be Nintendo. Exactly, for example, is that a company that basically focuses on one thing and they excel at that one thing. You can't just have a Google jumping in, haphazardly. You can't have an Amazon jumping in haphazardly. You can't have Netflix jumping in haphazardly and saying, well, we have all this money, it's going to work. That's just not how it works. You can't do that. You can't do that. And I think Microsoft shut down Mixer because of this. I think Google's shutting down Stadia because of this. I think Twitch is going to lose a lot of, if not revenue, because where else is it going to go? It's going to lose a lot of confidence in upcoming people.
And honestly, a lot of this feels like we could, move this to a conversation of economics, because the whole pandemic era really accelerated the growth of certain sectors. And obviously you could think of, kind of work from home and, kind of the need for internet, always connected, remote working, stuff like that. But I think one thing it did, and you could look at the stock prices for this, a lot of money went into these companies, and man, Nathan, there's something about these companies that they look at this and go, look at our revenue. It's tripled in the middle of the pandemic. We're doing amazing things, and guess what? It's only up from here, baby. And they just keep going, and they think that, this is their new reality. And then, hey, things start shifting back around, pandemic woes start to fade, and, Nathan, this seems like what it is. They're shrinking back because they could not sustain what the pandemic gave them.
Well, it was a bubble. I mean, it was everyone. It was the world's biggest self-imposed bubble. But anybody who's lived through the tech boom of the 1990s understands what's happening. Anybody who lives through any type of fat cash, like the Wall Street boom of the 80s, you could see what's happening. You have these companies who think this is, like you said, the new normal, and they don't invest. And here's a small economics lesson for anybody listening. If you read Twitter or if you watch the news, then you always hear there's always a politician harping about, oh, Jeff Bezos is worth $300 billion. He can afford to pay his people more. Okay, that's true. He can, but not out of his salary. And the reason for this is that a company doesn't say, we're making billions, let's give everybody a $30 an hour raise. Because if you do that, that company's gone. It will not exist in 30 days. Like, you literally have to put something in the bank. You have to have reservoirs. A responsible company, I hate to quote Chairman Mao of all people, but what did he say? He said, wish for rain, but dig wells. Like, you have to have both of this stuff. And sometimes not giving everything people want seems like a tough choice, but that's how you sustain a business model. That's how you sustain, and that's how you keep people employed. And the way, and Google and everything, I got to tell you, man, I don't understand. When the aliens look back at our civilization 1,000 years from now, they're going to scratch their bald heads and wonder how the hell Google could stay in business when they hemorrhage so much money. Because their business model, their primary business model of search, of captured audience, no one talks about this, but their Chromebook sales crumbled. Disintegrated after the pandemic.
Yeah, the article you linked me said that Google recently canceled the next generation of Pixelbook laptops and cut funding to its Area 120 in-house incubator, which I think is their research and development arm. But still, their Pixelbook laptop is not coming out next year.
Oh yeah, there's a lot, and there's a lot more going to come because again, there's not a captive audience anymore. Peloton, the exercise bike, featured a similar downcline. You mentioned Dick's Sporting Goods as an ad, but I actually just saw a story where they're going to start selling Peloton and Dick's Sporting Goods. And I thought to myself, why now? Why not before? You can't, I don't understand these companies. It's what are they getting paid for?
I think I do understand them. Yeah, I think I do understand them just a little bit, and it actually ties in a lot of what you were saying, where like Amazon, they don't communicate with even their own services, let alone other services, very well, and Peloton doing its thing. Nathan, every company wants to be the platform that everyone jumps on. Everyone wants to be the next Android. Everyone wants to be the next Apple to sell subscription services, run the back end, and just rake in the money. But for end consumers, that means that, hey, you have 30 different services offering you maybe one, if they're lucky, attractive service on that service, or I should say application or whatever, something that you want, product on those services. And yeah, they're not going to last forever, but boy, is venture capital money just going to pump into them and keep them afloat for a long time.
You're exactly right when you say venture capital, because what that's doing is you have investor money that's keeping a dead horse alive, and it's giving the impression that these companies are going to be more insoluble than they really are. And so if you're a person, let's say you decide, I'm going to sell all my CDs, for example, not certificate of deposits, but actual music CDs, if you still have them. Right. So you're going to get rid of all your music CDs. I'm going to go on a streaming service. I'm going to get Apple Music because Apple gave me 6 months of free service because I bought an Apple product. Okay, I'm on Apple Music now. Oh, Spotify. Look at that. Spotify is so good. I'm going to get into Spotify because I need the Joe Rogan podcast. But because before you can get Joe Rogan on Apple, now you can't. Now you got to get Joe Rogan on Spotify. And what's happening is you're starting to sort of vivisect the market in a way that's healthy for a while. But the problem becomes it's the old innovation law, is that now you have Apple Music. Spotify came first. Let's be fair. Spotify came first. Apple Music. And Apple Music was a result of 4 different Apple failures, like iTunes Radio, whatever. None of these worked. So eventually they said, screw it, we'll just copy Spotify. And they did. It's very limited service, pretty good service. I don't use it, but it's okay.
Right.
But now you have Amazon Music, you have whatever music, you have all these different music services. Plus you have the
how dare you
services.
Forget Tidal, the best music player.
Tidal, how dare I forget? I don't remember it. But, sorry, Kanye West. But what I'm saying, though, is that you have all these different services. Even Apple Music itself was an amalgamation of Beats Radio. So that's a case of Apple doing a better job of integrating services than, let's say, Amazon did or Google did. You simply cannot have disparate groups, because if you're going to join the Google family and you're not going to take advantage of the Google brand, then don't do it. Don't do it. I don't know the name of the company, Ben, but this is how absurd this whole acquisition market is, because that's what we're in right now. We're in acquisition market.
Oh yeah.
Adobe purchased a collaborative suite software for what, $22 billion?
Fabia or something like that, or
Fabia, $22 billion. That's insane. We're not, the fact that we're not talking about that, but we're talking about a failed product like Stadia, just shows you the power of these brand names. $22 billion is more money than Google would have ever spent on Stadia, ever, even long term. But it doesn't
Figma,
even
not
register.
Fabia.
Yeah,
no, Figma.
But you see all the cautionary. Oh, we're not going to integrate too much. We're going to let them be their own thing, because that's what you have to do when you have a company that makes $22 billion. You let them do their own thing for a while. That's why you bought them.
Yes. It's very we're definitely in the age of acquisition. I mean, you could look at Activision Blizzard, and then of course Microsoft buying them. That acquisition was huge. You could look at Meta or Facebook, as more people know it by, purchasing Giphy, and I think they had to spin that off in Europe. They weren't even allowed to keep that one. It's almost like just purchase anything with a user base, and like the user base can be 10 million, 50 million users, whatever a month, and hey, user. It's almost like and YouTube is actually kind of falling victim to this as well. You have the users, but then you have to figure out a way to turn a profit. And this goes back to Twitch and how they're saying that, they can't support the server cost. And even though they have 100 million users monthly, they're still not turning a profit. YouTube, Nathan, famously a couple weeks ago said that they were going to test out, 10 unskippable ads in a row in front of certain videos. Which, I don't know how effective advertising is, but if you just launch a YouTube video and then you get to go take a 4-minute break while ads run, I don't know. Users is the name of the game.
They're going to become crunchy all over again. But I'll say this: YouTube is doing this as though TikTok doesn't exist. It's crazy to me.
Well, TikTok's smart because they've worked all the advertising into the videos. Every video is just an ad. That's my experience.
The content
with
is different. Let's be fair. The content is different. But what I'm saying though is that you have these models that you can test. The Vine model didn't work. TikTok worked up to an extent. And just because TikTok's successful right now doesn't mean TikTok's going to be here in 2 years. Anything could happen. I think they've been there's probably been resistance to sell TikTok. I know there's been some controversy regarding its parentage. But what I'm saying, though, is that you have they haven't figured it out. They haven't figured out how to make streaming like local TV. Look, I say this with kindness. We all have elderly friends and elderly relatives. And we all know the scene. You come home, you put them in front of Turner Classic Movies, and they watch Gunsmoke for 24 hours a day. Nothing on streaming is as easy as that. I can't just flick it on and just let it entertain me forever until I die. That's what streaming has failed to do. It's too much engagement. You know what I mean? It's too active. It needs to be more passive. And I think the closest we've gotten to success with passive is Netflix. Yeah. For better, for worse. What's funny? I don't want to get too much into Netflix. There's been a lot of crow about Netflix losing subscribers, losing this. They are so massively more successful than anybody else, including Disney. They're the successful model, and they're going to advertising. So we'll see what happens.
Yep. It's and even Netflix is running on venture capital money. Venture capital money has propped up so many businesses and services and business models that should not work, but they become household names in exchange for just burning truckloads of cash. And
by the way, VCs, if you're listening to this, call me. I have a business plan. It's going to work.
There will always be a market for, hey, you give me money and I get to run my business at a loss. Heck, sign me up. Everyone would do that. I don't blame the companies for doing it, but it's not healthy.
I want to do full disclosure. I've been in discussions with venture capitalists on different projects outside of what I do. You get to varying degrees. You get to varying parts of the discussion. And things fall apart. It's very easy for it to fall apart because you mentioned something I want to touch base on about packaging.
Yeah.
Venture capitalists just usually 99% of them, they don't just buy a product or invest in a product. They invest in a suite of products.
Yes.
Anything, it's called content acquisition because they're not really interested in, they might be interested in you as a person because you have talent, or they might be interested in your IP or your patent. But generally speaking, they're not really interested in the product. They're interested in pieces of it. Because they can sell that as a package. They can come to Amazon and they say, look, I have these 25 companies. They have this product. They have this IP. We'll sell you the whole package. That's what happens because they know 20 out of those 25 are going to fade away real quick. And that's what happens. That's what happens with everything. Every music company, every computer company, every game company. When Microsoft bought Activision, they bought 20 studios. They're not just buying Activision.
You're right. Microsoft, ever since the Xbox Series X, they've definitely been purchasing more and more little indie studios that they were, said that these people will be developing exclusively for Microsoft and the Xbox. And then bam, they hit you with the King, Activision, Blizzard, kind of studio, and that was just huge. But they did go smaller first. Yeah.
Well, a recent example, I mean, that's a little apropos is Disney Plus. Disney bought Fox Media years ago, and they've stripped the Fox label out of everything. But Disney also owns Hulu. And they just released the movie Prey, which is a R-rated Predator movie. Mm-hmm. That's a Disney film. That's a Disney movie based on a Fox property that's not on Disney Plus. It's on Hulu. But that's an example of synergy between brands. That movie probably wouldn't happen had Disney not purchased it. And you're going to start seeing that more with content, whether it's streaming content, whether it's music content. There needs to be some sort of synergy. And I will say this, my final thought. Mm-hmm. Apple does a better job of this than Amazon and Google and YouTube. I think, have they announced it yet that Apple's going to run the Super Bowl, or they're going to start producing it?
I have not heard that,
or something, or some event. But because they can tap their huge repertoire of stars, they can literally say, okay, Eminem, you're going to play this show.
Apple Music becomes the official sponsor of the Super Bowl halftime show. Is that what you're talking about? That came out a couple days ago.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. And now Rihanna's going to do it. And Rihanna has all these tie-ins with Apple Music. See, Apple does, because think about it. Apple's not a computer company, really. They're an entertainment company. And they were revived because of the music industry. That's literally their Trojan horse. That's how they became successful.
Yeah.
And they still have it in their DNA a little bit.
Right. Okay, so obviously I would never make an enemy of Snoop Dogg, but I just got to say, this image here and Snoop Dogg right there, there is something about Snoop Dogg that, he became a household name. He will slap his name on just about anything.
Oh, yeah.
I have seen so many bad cryptocurrencies. I've seen so many NFT scams, so many, he recently did like a Bored Ape Yacht Club music video with Eminem, and it was like all just one big song and advertisement for NFTs. And man, there is just nothing that guy won't. Well, hey, you want $500? Sure, here we go.
There was a joke about it. Like I was talking to one of my editors because she's my editor Ev Wong was doing some podcasts on K-dramas and K-pop. Mm-hmm. New episode coming out this weekend, by the way. We were talking about like the popularity of K-pop groups like BTS, and I said, you haven't hit the bottom until you do a collaboration with Snoop Dogg, because that's sort of the thing. And sure enough, right after I said it, collaboration with Snoop Dogg, it just happens. He says no to nothing, and
he says no to nothing.
Part of it makes him lovable. Like my favorite Gorillaz album has Snoop Dogg on it, but I'll say this: he's doing it, man. He's living the dream. Like he's cashing in, and you got to give him a little credit.
My favorite thing about Snoop Dogg is that he streams on Twitch. For those who don't know, he streams on Twitch. He had and like he's I'm sure he's a very intelligent man. For 3 days, he had his microphone muted. And so he would stream 3 days on his Twitch stream, 8 hours, 6, 8, whatever, how many hours a day. And it would just be him playing NFL, it would be him playing Madden. And finally, like 3 days later, he's sitting there and he looks at it and he's like, and he presses a button and he's like, How long have I been muted for? Whatever. And he just keeps going. Like he was muted for 3 days, didn't read his chat once because everyone was spamming him for 3 days, telling him that no one could hear him, the game audio, his music, nothing. It was just him and his face playing video games.
But they still watched it though. They still tuned in.
At that point, you have to, the fact that he's just so like he's like, yeah, sure, the camera's on, but I'm here for me. It really doesn't matter. I'm not reading chat or anything like that for 3 days. It was incredible. So anyways, enough about Snoop Dogg.
I got to give Snoop Dogg credit though. I got to give him credit before we move on that he has created the single best advertisement of the last 20 years.
What's that?
He had this weird relationship with, still does, with Martha Stewart. And that's brilliant marketing right there.
I remember brilliant. That.
Still going on, and they have these placards all over Walmart where they have a picture of him and Martha Stewart talking about the candles.
Her, right?
They're good friends. Like they're legitimately good friends. And I think she used to be friends with Busta Rhymes too. And by the way, R.I.P. Coolio. Can we just say that?
That's true.
So R.I.P. Coolio, the man who introduced a whole generation to Stevie Wonder. Mm-hmm. That's all I'll say. But the advertisement was for some candles. And Martha Stewart did her usual, oh, it's great for sending bathrooms and all this. And Snoop Dogg just says, and more. Because you know what it's for. You know what it's for.
Snoop Dogg has he has an MO. But okay, so let's wrap up let's wrap up Stadia as well. And saying that they're going to shut the company down.
Are we sure this time? We keep saying we're going to stop talking about Stadia. We always do. I think it's dead.
Well, this is obviously going to go the way of the old joke. Google likes to kill their subsidiaries and their products. This one is going to go down as big as Google Plus did. It's going to go down January 18th, and they said that all refunds should be available by then. But you're right, Nathan. Even though they've announced this, they're still taking your credit card. They're still taking subscription services. So January 18th. I'll say this though.
Yeah. I wish the technology well. It works really well. Like, it actually is the best of the whole bunch. And I don't know what Google is going to do with it. I have a feeling we're going to see it again in some form. I started to see a little glimpse of what that could be when they had relationships with like DirecTV, and they were giving out quote unquote free games like Batman. Mm-hmm. The technology would be perfectly fine and acceptable in another form. But as a subscription service competing with actual games, I don't think so. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, not with Steam still being as dominant as they are. So, okay, so there's that story. Looking through here, let's see if there's one I want to jump to. Let's talk about. Okay, I think we can segue this pretty well into DALL-E and its AI art creation tool. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you've seen some of the articles in the past month about. Mm-hmm. Nathan, there was pretty famously an art competition that was recently won by someone who essentially submitted a piece of art that was AI generated, and it beat over actual, paintings and other pieces of art. They said it was a digital medium, AI generated, and it won first place for the competition it was in. And that gets that got a lot of people talking. Even though no one cares about, the Wisconsin Regional Art Fair Symposium, 2022.
Hey, speak for yourself.
Speak for myself. But I will say it got people talking about this idea that this AI-generated art is going to, I think when we first started talking about AI, Nathan, a lot of people thought... when the robots come, the manual labor, the maybe the self-driving cars and trucks and trucking jobs are going to be gone. But more and more we're seeing AI and machine learning has incredible capabilities of taking away writing articles for newspapers, writing show scripts, creating digital art, making music, making even movies. I've seen some of those. AI is starting to come for the creative jobs that people thought were going to be the last bastions of where humans could exert their creativity. So DALL-E is a very, very famous tool that takes millions of images all over the web and creates something new based on a prompt that you type in. And it's, available to everyone who wants to use it. So Nathan, what I'm trying to say is AI and art, kind of where, first of all, do you think the technology is good? And second of all, where do you think it kind of heads from here? Does this turn everyone into an artist? Does this devalue artists? Does this, maybe make artists more valuable because, everything's derivative, but to create something truly new, you need a human. I don't know. What do you think about DALL-E?
To answer your question, all your questions, yes. All of it. Yes, all of it.
I saw that coming. Yes.
The technology is great. It will take away jobs. It will create new jobs. It is a revolution in the way we process things, and it's slowly been amalgamating over the years. Like you said, this doesn't exist without pre-existing work. So there's a cannibalization effect in place. That the idea is that DALL-E or what's the other one? Diffusion. What's it called? Stable Diffusion. There's Midjourney. There's a bunch of these. I have dabbled in it myself, and I've had a lot of fun with it. If you type in Godzilla plus anything, you're gonna have a good time. but the fact is, it's a tool. It's a tool, and it's more similar to, I would say, what's the social media thing with photos that's like primarily Pinterest. It's imagine if you put Pinterest and Photoshop together. because Pinterest is based also on an AI algorithm that matches photos and it amalgamates that. But when you use Photoshop, right? Like Popzara is very heavily influenced by graphic design, and we have a cartoon mascot, right. So we're not unknown to this. But the thing is, if you use Photoshop, and I have a lot of people who have worked for me and I've worked with that have never taken an art class. They've never had to like use a paintbrush or a eraser or do pigment blending, or they don't understand how to, they don't understand the concepts of how to wet a piece of paper to do watercolor, but they know everything digitally and they're great at it. But the only problem I've had with this is it's like SEO. Like when you deal with writers who have been SEO, it's like detaching them from the Borg. Like their entire mental structure is, how do I write for SEO? How do I write because I get maximum results? And that's what AI artwork is a little bit. It's matching results based on what you have. So there's no real creative aspect in it. I mean, we could get into more Star Trek metaphors about what consciousness is and how creativity works and how machine learning could be considered. What's the test for that? The Turing test? Like, can it pass the Turing test? But at the end of the day, it's a tool. And I think once people get past the initial wow of it, then I think it will be a tool that will expand. I also think there are people that are probably disabled that can't move their hands that will now have an outlet to create art. I think people who may have other disabilities or can't use a brush. Have you ever heard of the cartoonist Harvey Pekar?
No.
See, this is a good example of this. Harvey Pekar was part of those underground comic people. He couldn't draw at all. Couldn't even do stick figures. And he created a comic strip called American Splendor by putting an advertisement in the paper saying, if you can draw, please do it for me. He had no experience, right?
Right.
Great movie, by the way. Great movie with, what's his name? Goodness gracious. What's his name? The actor.
Oh
goodness, I promise you he's a great actor. But no, see American Splendor, the movie. It's fantastic. But he didn't know how to draw and he didn't have the skills for it. So he went out and found it. And that's not too different than someone who doesn't have artistic skills, but who has artistic bent. Like you see this a lot with like urban music, specifically hip hop and a lot of electronica. You have people who don't know how to play a piano. They don't know how to play piano, but they can play a beat machine. They can learn it. They're going to bypass learning the notes. They're going to bypass learning the metronome, whatever. But they're going to learn how to play music and be successful at it. And that may not be the path that a musician who went to Berkeley would take, but it's a path.
One of my favorite examples of that, and then we'll get back on Dolly, but one of my favorite examples of that is Biz Marquis, Just a Friend, and I think everyone knows the song. He, and I think the story behind
R.I.P.
it was
by the way.
Him as well, was that he rented a studio, and he was like, this is with the studio you rent time, you get 8 hours or whatever, and then goes on to the next person. His singer did not show up, so he was like, you know what, I got the time, I already spent my money, I'm gonna do it myself. And he sings horribly, but at the same time it's really good. Yes, very memorable. I see what you're saying. It's much to your idea that you said earlier, where everything becomes homogenized, nothing stands out, and hey, sometimes you just need to stand out, even if you go the quote unquote wrong way. It can definitely do that. Now, I do want to say with Dolly, for everyone out there who doesn't really know, how this really works, is that they've trolled the internet. They get rights to images. They can roll in, 10 million different pieces of paintings, digital art, canvas, oil painting. They can do watercolors, all that kind of thing, Nathan. And then you put in a prompt, and on their site they're like, green avocado sofa with with white background, and it'll take every tagged photo, and each photo that they kind of digest has 50 different tags, be it person, horse, face, white background, green. It includes tags like colors and people and shapes and sizes and so on and so forth. And then when you put in that prompt, it mixes them all together, takes 50,000 different photos that match the prompt that you're giving it in some loose way, and then tries to mix it together in some way that makes sense. That's what the machine algorithm does.
Well,
now, obviously you're going to get things that have never been seen before, but at the same time, you can only get derivatives of the data set that you put in. So it can never be truly unique, but it can be something completely new.
Well, to be fair, art school works the same way. People copy styles they like.
Of course.
They have artists they like.
You study the past. Yes, you study what's already been done so you can maybe do something different yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you're talking about the human element, the one that actually creates the data set that they can derive from. Mm-hmm. And to be fair, again, that works like anything else. That's why you talk, and I'm not super knowledgeable on it. My favorite artist of all time, my singularly favorite artist of all time, right? If I said Norman Rockwell to you, you'd probably think, I like Norman Rockwell, I enjoy him. But art snobs don't like him very much, or they certainly didn't, because he was commercial in a way that they weren't. I mean, it's well known that a lot of people try to make money off art. It's very difficult. Yeah. Some would say modern art is sort of a money laundering scam. And I think, yeah, sure, but someone's getting money. So, but the fact of the matter is that I think I saw this story about a 10-year-old boy was selling his paintings for like $200,000, and they were just reproductions of Picasso's. But the fact of the matter is, it goes back to what is art. It's always that question. Now, what is art?
Yeah, and that is a much harder conversation that you and I probably can't figure out here in the show. But
I have an answer.
Oh,
my answer. My answer is simple. Yeah. No. Like, this is for me. Art is whatever you want it to be. Like, if you think something's art, if you enjoy looking at AI art, if you like it, that's fine. Some people, for example, anime fans are like this. Japanese animation has been around for a long time, but it was very popular in the 80s. It wasn't called anime. Then it became very subversively popular in the 90s. Then it sort of had a restoration. Now it's a dominant art form. It generates more money than any other thing. Same with manga, but it's not new. And now you have people who are not from Japan trying to create it. And the discussion becomes, is that anime? Is that manga? And the answer is yes, but the appeal to categorize things is interrupting your ability to enjoy it. We're not talking about, do you like this painting or this manga or this AI? We're talking, what is it? Is it art? Then we're off the subject of whether you enjoy it or not. But if you enjoy something, you enjoy it.
There's also the question of, kind of what is art? And I think a lot of people would say anything created by an artist. And well, what happens when your artist is, just an algorithm, just a machine. And even just scrolling down from the article that we have here, photo service Getty Images bans AI generated images. So, and I guess they were getting flooded because, the way that Getty Images works, you submit a photo, you submit a painting, you submit something that you create, and then you get to sell the license. If someone uses your photo in, let's say, publication, advertising, whatever, you get $100. So it behooves you to generate as much content as you possibly can in the hopes that someone picks it for Apple's next national advertising campaign and you get a lot of money. I guess they were getting flooded with too many images and too much AI artwork, and they're just banning it outright. So,
well, of course, it's a stopgap. I mean, something's going to have to happen. But you go to a orchestra, right? You go see a symphonic orchestral show. The maestro doesn't play any instruments. He's waving his little baton. But he's considered an artist. He even has a name, maestro. But he's not playing the cello. He's not playing the harp. He's conducting them. He's using other people's talents to conduct and create something new. And to me, that's not really that different than AI. And I think some people would get into the nitty gritty and say, oh, no, this and that. But at the end of the day, though, you're going to see what I'm talking about. There are going to be people who learn this new language of AI, and they're going to excel at it. And there's going to be people who just throw muck at they're going to be like Jackson Pollock, just throw paint at the wall and see what sticks. And some people are going to enjoy that because it's probably going to be cruder and more accessible. But you're going to have artists who can see the language like the Matrix. They're going to see the digital bits and bytes and understand the symmetry that works together. Like, what's the expression? Man walked on sand for 1,000,000 years before he thought to make glass. Like, the ideas are going to be right in front of you. They're going to be there, but someone's going to learn how to use it. I mean, what is a piano except for strings? 10 strings. Or how is that different than a violin or a xylophone? It's different, but it's a different instrument.
Let's check that now. Let's transition this to a little bit to a conversation we started having before the show. But let's take that analogy. You have the tools. Let's see what someone else can do with them to create something truly unique. And to that extent, what happens when these tools become, you may guess it, Bruce Willis and James Earl Jones.
Yes.
We're going to transition over to this because much like AI generated art, machine learning and AI are able to take two very iconic names and, well, really their voices, and in Bruce Willis's case, his entire likeness, acting method, whatever, and able to put it in places that those two have never actually been. And so...
Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, this is absolutely no different than AI artwork. Like, this is just patient zero. Like,
yes.
If all your algorithms were based on Bruce Willis, this would be. Like, if this is just one data set, Bruce Willis. And so instead of amalgamating Bruce Willis with, like, Colin Farrell and Meryl Streep, this is just Bruce Willis. Although I would really like to see an amalgamation of Bruce Willis and Meryl Streep. But they were in a movie together, by the way, Death Becomes Her. Very good movie by Robert Zemeckis. Yeah, no one knows this movie exists, but it's a lot of fun.
By the way, real quick, and for those who are thinking, how good can be, and Nathan's probably going to talk about how good James Earl Jones was in.
No, I won't. I will not be talking like that.
Probably, but I wanted to kind of point everyone watching the video portion, you can see it here. The Mona Lisa, you may have heard of her, but there's only one image of that. It's only the painting, the Mona Lisa. And using AI, you can see where they're able to essentially bring the Mona Lisa to life. And it's not 100% perfect, but it's pretty uncanny that they're able to turn the Mona Lisa, the face, into a talking person. And obviously that's done with mixing with other videos of other women, talking and things like that. It's pretty cool. Now, imagine that's just one picture and that's your entire data set. Mm-hmm. Now imagine that with Bruce Willis's extensive photos, videos, green screen, high-res scans and stuff like that. You said patient zero, Nathan. This is, it's certainly possible. You're going to see Bruce Willis for many years. Yeah.
Well, we've been building to this. I mean, the most famous example of this sort of aftermarket would be like Paul Walker in the Fast and the Furious movies, where they didn't have him to finish it. They had to create a body double. People don't know, but who's the actor who's the actor who died during the making of Gladiator? I love that guy. What's his name? He played the werewolf. You know what I'm talking about?
No idea.
In the Hammer films? Give me one second here. You need to know this because he's a really fun guy. You should watch his interviews. Goodness gracious, what is his name? But anyway, if you go, Oliver Reed.
Okay.
If you watch Gladiator, he died during the making of Gladiator. He actually got into a drunken bar fight and died, which is probably how he wanted to go. And they had to finish it with digital effects. Would go.
Yes.
Yeah, you've seen The Sopranos, where they had to create entire scenes out of CG because the actress who played Tony Soprano's mother died, and so it looks awkward. But they've gotten better. And today we're talking about we're going to talk about Disney purchasing basically James Earl Jones' voice.
That as well.
Thank goodness. And but you have Bruce Willis. First of all, Bruce Willis, God bless him, should have stopped making movies about 5 years ago when the sickness started setting in. Like, the man's career has been diluted with garbage, just unrepentant garbage. So maybe that's part of the plan. Maybe because his last few movies were so wretched that when they start creating a CG Bruce Willis, you can't tell the difference. Because have you seen the shows about this? Have you seen the investigations where they actually showed all the tricks the filmmakers would do to hide Bruce Willis? They only had him for a couple hours.
Yeah, I did not, no.
Oh yeah, body doubles, green screens. Like he basically wasn't even there to make the movies. They had to use doubles.
I remember at one point they were talking about the fact that he was able to star in a movie that he was on the other side of the planet for. Like he did it through just cameras and acting in front of a camera. And like you said, these films, they're not very notable, but they're being made, and that's more than a lot of other movies can be said. So,
well, Disney Plus, for example, and even the Marvel films have been experimenting with de-aging people for a couple of years to varying degrees of success. Even Martin Scorsese, This Is Cinema, he even did that with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, just limited success. But we're talking about replacing somebody totally, and I think the two examples that would point to where that's going to go are I think the Mandalorian series and the Obi-Wan show. In the Mandalorian, very, very famously, they digitally recreated de-aged Mark Hamill.
Yeah,
and it didn't look very good, but people loved it because it was Mark Hamill. However, when they did the same trick in what series was that? Was it Boba Fett or was it Mandalorian still? They had Mark Hamill showed up again as Luke Skywalker, except he didn't. Mark Hamill had nothing to do with that scene. He didn't perform for it. He didn't even talk for it. The AI program, I think, is the same for the James Earl Jones thing. They digitally recreated Mark Hamill out of nothing. And people didn't really notice, but they kind of did. And I think if you watch the Obi-Wan show, have you watched Obi-Wan?
Not yet.
Okay. I watched it. When you hear Darth Vader speak, it's Hayden Christensen in the suit. But something feels off with the voice. And it's like, what's wrong with James Earl Jones? First of all, he's 92 years old?
91, yeah.
When he shows up, it's a miracle. Like he showed up in Coming to America Part 2. They had to film his scenes in a bed, dying because he's ill.
Yeah.
But when you listen to it, something feels off. Like the performance feels off. You don't know what it is. Turns out it wasn't actually him. It was the AI bot creating speech out of Hayden Christensen's speech to sound like James Earl Jones. And it's noticeable. And you asked me what I thought about it. I hate the technology. Hate it. I want it to die on the vine. I want it to go away. I love James Earl Jones. I love his voice. His voice has been part of my childhood since birth. I'm a 1977 baby. Every year of my life. And you know what? Conan, his best movie. I don't care what anybody says.
I've not seen that, but really we're kind of reaching a point where the best of the best, and I it's hard to think of a more maybe oh my God, I'm actually forgetting his name. The guy that did all the nature documentaries, Attenborough, Sir David Attenborough.
He's still alive. Yeah, his brother's dead though.
But I'm just trying to think of like any more notable voices, more iconic voices out there. And, I can almost guarantee, especially with Attenborough, we're going to have nature documentaries with Attenborough's voice for the next 100 years. We're going to have, at this point, James Earl Jones, we're going to have his voice work for as long as Star Wars is going to exist.
Well, you remember Roger Ebert, of course. Roger Ebert, the most famous movie critic of all time. He lost his jaw to cancer, and you see him in his latter day. If you type in Roger Ebert without his jaw, you'll see he can't talk anymore. This is a man who built his reputation on a TV show, at the movies with Ebert and I can't talk, Siskel and Ebert.
Right.
What happened is like AI company actually helped him create a sacrosanct, completely authentic voice for him that he could type in, sort of like who's the physicist? Stephen Hawking's.
Yeah.
But Stephen Hawking's voice sounded like an Atari game. Hello, how are you doing?
They offered him upgrades, but he turned them down. You're right.
But that voice became identified with Stephen Hawking's. But if you listen to Roger Ebert, it sounds a lot like Ebert. I mean, it doesn't sound fluid, but it's his syntax. It's his samples they took. Mm-hmm. This is the next level of this. This is now saying the creator doesn't have to be involved. But just like AI, though, it draws upon a well of pre-existing clips, pre-existing inflections, guttural, diphthongs, everything. It draws upon that to create something new, but it's not new. It's still like a mixtape. And I got one example for you, and I'm going to stop. Michael Jackson had an album in 2001 called Invincible. It was funny because it came in 5 different colors. I bought the red one and the blue one. But there was a song on it called, I forget what it was called, Under the Bed or whatever. And it was basically him trying to redo Thriller. But instead of Vincent Price rapping, they had Rod Sterling rapping. They had gone back and they had clipped, I don't know how long it must have taken them. They had Rod Sterling's voice clipped doing a rap for a Michael Jackson song. 30 years after he died. Yeah. That's where it all, thank you, Michael Jackson. Took you 22 years, 21 years, but you finally caught up.
Yep.
He's dead too. You're going to see him in a movie too at some point.
Yeah, and to then take this conversation a little bit more, but then we're going to jump ship to a completely different story. But I just want to say that, and I was trying to Google it as I was sitting here. There are actresses, and I would say they are being used in South Korea and Japan and, you know, places where this is a little bit more acceptable because K-pop is K-pop, but they have completely digital fake. And this is not a referendum on any actual person, but no, they're actual fake, mostly women that they're using to advertise products. You can hire, instead of hiring, you know, Ben or Nathan to go advertise your product, this digital firm will instead be like, hire Elizabeth, who is a completely digital, no background, no personal history, no controversy, completely digital actress that will, you know, model swimsuits for you, that will model makeup for you, that will model all that kind of thing. And it's being used on like Instagram and, you know, TikTok and places like that, where you have a completely digital actress, you know, advertising your product, and it just costs you a little bit of money, and they can do, you know, anything that you'd like.
Well, careful with that suggestion, but I'll say this.
but you know what I mean.
What was that? There was a crappy movie that came out like 15 years ago called Simone with Al Pacino. Do you remember that movie? Where it turns out he had to. Al Pacino plays a computer programmer. Let's just say that. He creates a digital actress, and she becomes a phenomenon, and he has to hide to the world that he's actually the actress. That the hot, sexy actress is actually Al Pacino.
I believe
it's kind of disturbing.
I believe that.
But I mean, like that's a reality now. Like that's going to happen. In fact, that's going to happen in the open, and that's going to happen where people want it to happen. You see it happen in Japan and Korea with a Hitsupe. I forget her name. The digital, but she looks like an anime. We're going to have women who look real. And we're going to have, and by the way, make no mistake, this is going to be a 99% female-male split. Like, this is going to happen. But how is that different, right? Than when you see magazines and you see stuff and people are so heavily photoshopped, they don't look real anymore. Like Kim Kardashian, I don't know what she looks like in the real world, but in the digital world, she looks like a clown. Like I know some people, apologies if you find that attractive, but there's so much makeup and foundation. That's not what that person looks like, or any of the Kardashians. They've gone through so much work, but why not just skip that? Why not just skip it and just go right to the digital?
I can't imagine being those celebrities and just having to deal with it every single day. If someone sees you in real life without the touch up and just saying, "Are you okay? Do you feel okay? You don't look well," you know, just because obviously you know every photo out there is It's not trying to like insult someone as a person, but I mean like your entire visual is based on falsehoods. It's not how you look. You know, you might as well be making like. There's a pretty famous thing that happens. I think it's in Germany, where any food advertisement, and this is not a thing here in the US, although it should be, any food advertisement has to be actual edible food. Here in the US, you can use shoe lacquer to make, you know, to make those buns look perfectly toasted. Use nails and little wooden platforms to make the burger kind of look taller. Not a thing over in the EU where they kind of say, if you're advertising food, it has to be edible, actual food that people will be eating. It's not this gimmicky thing. What strange
times we live in that you have to show the actual product.
Right.
But it's like, but you know, I mean, this is an old game. Like we talked about with the AI, like this is very similar. In fact, this is just a buildup. It's like, this is the result, the end result of this. Like we knew this was going to happen. The digital people was going to happen. We knew this was going to happen. Back in the 90s, when I was a kid, they had a picture of Gene Kelly dancing with a vacuum cleaner, or Fred Astaire. Like, you know, it's like, you don't have to be dead anymore. I mean, nothing. You could live forever, but it's not the same. You know, it's not the same. And I don't know, like when I was younger, I'd want to go on adventures with Mark Hamill forever. That's the younger me. But then you get older, and it's like, if Mark Hamill never got older in real life, you'd never have the grizzled, like teddy bear Mark Hamill. Or how about can I give you the greatest example of all? Sean Connery. Sean Connery is the best example I can give you of this thing. He starts off, he's a great actor, right? He starts off, you get to know him through James Bond.
Young heartthrob, of course.
30 years later, he's Indiana Jones' dad. 20 years later. And then 20 years after that, he's The Rock and he's dancing with Catherine Zeta-Jones' butt. Mm-hmm. So, but you look at them, you look at how he looks physically and how he looks in James Bond. You've seen Highlander, right? Where he played Ramirez,
of course,
whatever.
Of course.
He's awesome in Ramirez. Looks nothing like James Bond. Then you look at him as Indiana Jones' dad, looks nothing. You look at him in The Rock, he's great. But if a person's not allowed to age into something else, we're never going to have those transitions. We're going to have the James Earl Jones at 92 or whatever. You know, did you see The Lion King 2019, the wretched remake?
I did not.
Yeah, James Earl Jones played Mufasa in the original cartoon and in the remake. In the remake, he sounds like he's dying. His voice is not the same. He doesn't sound like Simba's father. He sounds like his great grandfather. And it's like, you're not going to have that because which James Earl Jones do you want? And we don't know what else he would have become or what could have happened. We don't know. And imagine doing this to young actors. Like James Dean died when he was like 22. And now there was talk about resurrecting him. Did you remember this story? This was like a year ago. It disappeared. They were going to take a digital scan of him and use a fake James Dean in a World War II movie. And it got outcry. Like, we're going to recreate actors from the dead, like those Tupac holograms or the Michael Jackson holograms.
Yeah, I think that story kind of hit a wall because people were like, it's one thing for James Earl Jones or Bruce Willis to sell their likeness and, kind of say, this is what I approve of. It's another thing to, go back and say, well, who would look really good advertising our lipstick? We're going to scan Marilyn Monroe and we're going to have her do all of our lipstick advertising. And everyone's like, she didn't agree to that. And that's not right, But
her rights owners did because she's not a person anymore. But I'll say this. A really good example of how you shouldn't do this is my favorite rock group of all time, U2. I love U2. I don't care what you think. I love U2. And their famous album was A Joshua Tree. And when they were remastering it like 2 or 3 years ago, Bono, God bless him, decided he didn't like the vocal mix in one of his songs where he was singing. So he decided to record it now, 30 years later, and mix it in. And when you listen to the song, you can tell it's a different voice.
Yeah.
Like, you're different 30 years later. You sound different. Look at Bob Dylan. He doesn't sound anything like he did in the 60s. But I love James Earl Jones. I love his performance as Darth Vader. I get it. He's not the same person he was 40-something years ago. I get it, right? But that's why I like him. He changed. As an actor, he was great.
It's going to become a big question about, do you hire a new actor who's trying to, kind of make it through and, be up and coming, which there will always be a need for something new, something fresh, something innovative? Or do you go with a digital recreation of, if you're able to do this with your movie, or do you go with James Earl Jones voiceover, or do you go with Bruce Willis? Because, now Bruce Willis will, of course, star in any production that you'd like him to because he's digital.
What do you mean? No, he's been doing that for 5 years.
And for everyone out there who doesn't know, he's been dealing with I think it's aphasia, where he's starting to get like essentially dementia, and he's
pretty much
so he's been trying to secure enough funds for his family, which I'd be surprised if he wasn't already secure in that department. But you know what, hey, Bruce Willis doesn't need to have shame because
bad investments.
Yeah, Bruce Willis doesn't need shame. He needs money for his family. That's essentially what he's going for.
But anyway, what I was going to say though is that we're going to see this happen. It's going to happen whether we like it or not. At some point though, I'm wondering what the first completely AI movie will be, like when everybody's made out of digital, when everybody's created, on a laptop, and then I'm going to have to eat my own words. Movie. Yeah. But then again, it all goes back to what we talked about with the AI artwork. At that point, it's going to be up to the digital artist to create that performance, And maybe I'll eat my hat. Maybe it'll be great. Maybe it'll actually be a bonus. I don't know.
And even to throw another actor into this would be Chadwick Boseman for Black Panther. I think he's going to be in the next Black Panther movie as well. So it's.
I don't know. I don't think so on that one, but for different reasons.
I could be wrong, and probably am. Let's see. Black Panther 20. Wakanda Forever. I think did that already come out?
No, it's coming out, but I don't think, I think what's happened is Chadwick Boseman will become an icon in the movie, but not actually appear even as a CG. Like, I think they've written his death into the movie.
I gotcha. Okay, so either way, but yeah, we're gonna start seeing, death is no barrier for good actors and actresses to stop their career. If anything, it's just the next way.
One more statement? I got to do a PSA. So a couple years ago, Paramount had this horrible reboot of The Twilight Zone, starring Jordan Peele. It's terrible, absolutely atrocious. One of the worst things I've ever seen. Spoiler: at the end of the first season, you find out that the ghost of Rod Sterling is alive, and he's infiltrated the show. So they actually digitally recreate Rod Sterling with CG. Yeah, it's horrible. It's one of the most disrespectful, terrible things I've ever seen. And they did it, and they went for it, and they shouldn't have done it, and it was terrible. It was just, and it was just a bad imitation too. It was pretty bad.
Gotcha. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and transition a little bit here. This will be our last topic for the show because we're already, Nathan, I'll be honest, I could talk to you forever. But We're going to end with the AMD Ryzen 7000. This is less subjective, less brain expanding, and more just, hey, a piece of hardware. Do you think it looks good?
Well, I'll say this. After the show, one of my editors is rushing down to Micro Center to pick one up. Going to join the next generation. I'm probably going to do it at some point, but I'm pretty happy with my last gen right now. We were going to talk about Moore's Law, but Moore's Law don't live in this dojo. What I have is good enough. But no, it's interesting. No deals right now, by the way, because these things are probably going to be sold out by the end of the weekend. Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah.
What do you think?
And obviously you're looking at the Ryzen 5, 7, and 9, 7900, 7900X and 7950X. I'm interested in, honestly, until Intel comes out, and I'm a huge Intel, NVIDIA fanboy, but until Intel brings something else out, AMD, and not AMD, AMD has captured the top end of the processor market. That's always been traditionally, AMD is a great middle ground, price to performance. They're going to beat Intel in every place that AMD Ryzen is positioned. For the top end, this latest release pushes them over Intel. And
yeah, I saw the benchmarks. It's pretty wild. That's not usually the case. Intel always had a power edge and performance edge at the top, but I don't think that's the case anymore.
If you didn't care about an extra $300 or $400, Intel would beat AMD classically. But now, hey, the multi-processor, multi-threading that they're doing, and the fact they get 32 threads, 16 cores, 4.5 gigahertz, and I think they're able to boost that to, I want to say 5.6 or something like that. Incredible speeds, and all of that is just
When are the Intels coming out? Do we know? Do we have a?
I want to say in early November. Let's see. Next Intel processor release. And by the way, October 20th. So it'll be just so that'll happen, and then you'll be back on the show. So
yay. This is really something more that Herman is dealing with. Our good friend Herman Exum. In fact, he's the one going to boogie over there. But it's I am interested in a little bit but I'm interested in a more pragmatic way. Because we also have, I don't know if we're going to talk about, I don't know if we're going to have time to talk about it. The new GPUs are coming out, the graphics process units. NVIDIA's got theirs. There's been a lot of controversy with the pricing. I've always thought they were expensive. Whereas AMD is cutting prices, and there's just by comparison are going to look much more affordable. Then you have Intel with the new ARCs coming out, which are not even going to compete in the high end. They're going from mid-range to low range. So we have all this stuff, but at the end of the day, as someone who covers gaming quite a bit, and so I kind of have some stake in this, you don't need any of this stuff. And this is the problem, is that we've reached a plateau where, for example, you have a game like Cyberpunk 2077, a game that's been out for almost 2 years, was riddled with bugs, was left for dead, has been revived, and it's become the most popular game in the world again because of a tie-in anime. We talked about synergy earlier. I told you Netflix had a great synergy. This is what I'm talking about. An anime revived probably is going to help create $500 million because the base game was really good. It needed polish. It got polished. Guess what? Your PC right now plays it fine. Your graphics card plays it fine. Stadia played it fine. I can attest to that. But the problem is that you have this new technology coming out, and it looks great. It looks fantastic on paper. But what are they benchmarking it with? What does that mean to you? Like, you're not going to have any game in your library that's going to need this. You know, those new video cards? Nothing's going to need them.
That's, I think, where AMD is really firing on all cylinders, and then NVIDIA and Intel are kind of falling a little bit behind, is that they, and yes, AMD is competing at the top end of both of those. Good. But Intel and NVIDIA have it in their heads that first of all, Intel has this massive problem with the whole research development side, and they're still working on like the 12 nanometer or whatever they're working with. They're having a huge problem with research and development, and Intel's still in the middle of this transition. So, we're going to kind of give them a pass in that they know they're failing.
Funny how a company that had 90% of market share 10 years ago is now classified as an underdog.
Yeah,
isn't that strange?
Definitely. But I will say that NVIDIA has it in their head, especially with the past 2 or 3 years, and what's been happening there is that they've determined that people will pay any price for their product. It doesn't matter how much they keep putting the high end up $200, $300, $400 more than it was the previous year, and like you said, they keep selling out. So I think NVIDIA has it in their head: price doesn't matter. People will buy what we put out, and we're just going to go big. And just as you were saying, people don't need to go big. People don't need the latest, greatest, craziest thing in the world to play the best games.
But it's not even, that's the thing. The branding part about gaming has been really a downfall. For the past 3 years, GPUs have been about cryptocurrency. Like that's helped guide and limit their success. And some people say ruined their development as well. I mean, you had companies tinkering with, you can't do this with the card you just paid $500 for. Well, screw you, I'm going to do it anyway. But the problem is it's not just gaming, though. We're talking about a lot of things. We're talking about more and more people. For example, we talked about AI. You can download the API. You could do this on your own computer. Like you're going to need higher impact. You're going to do photo editing. You're going to do 4K video editing. You're going to do more video streaming. Like, these things use your computer much more than gaming does. Like, the gaming part of your computer is very small. Like, you get a GPU for that, that's fine. But you're not going to need a high-end Ryzen processor when you have a $2,000 GPU. Right. But if you're going to do all this other stuff, that's what kind of this was for. Like, they're trying to sell us industrial machines that are grossly overpowered that we don't need, and that's a problem. Look at the gaming industry. Look at the gaming console market. You can't buy a PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X. You buy an S, but you don't want that. Even the Switch is becoming easier to find. But go back to the Switch for a second. Switch uses a Pascal architecture, same as the Titan, NVIDIA's Titan years ago. Not exactly state of the art, but good enough. They've done a lot with it. Look how much programmers and developers have done with old technology like the Switch versus new technology. Like, it really makes you wonder. Like, you can't make the argument that you need better hardware to get a better experience anymore. Like, up to a point. Yeah. And now, what's the killer app? They're going to test Shadow of the Tomb Raider again?
VR,
going on
of
5
course.
years old.
What are you talking about? VR?
Yeah, VR looks like Duplo blocks. Like, that's what I'm trying to say. It's like, where's the software tie-in? What's going to be the big thing? And I think they've mismanaged the message. Why don't they embrace cryptocurrency? Why don't they? Because there's no regulatory board saying they can't. Why does it always have to be gaming? Why can't it be something else? But
yeah, and so first of all, and I have a very public opinion about cryptocurrency and how wasteful it is and how absolute crap it is. So, but I will say that graphics cards have famously become more and more available, and if you want a good graphics card, the latest generation, they're cool. I love talking about them, but at the same time, last generations are just as good, if not better, for the price than what you're going to get in this generation. Yeah. So
can I do a PSA on that? I agree with you completely. Sure. If you want a new graphics card, your ship is coming in. Like, there's going to be lots to choose from, and they're all going to be, for you, better than a better value proposition than anything you're going to get now. And if you look for deals, I've seen deals, Ben, where GPU makers were giving away like 1440p gaming monitors with the card. Like they're just because the inventory is overstocked because they didn't anticipate the demand, they undervalued the demand, and now they're stuck with like 2 years of inventory of product that's awesome. That's really good.
Yeah. Don't buy from third-party sellers, though. Be careful. Some of those are refurbished cryptocurrency mining graphics cards. And for those who don't know how those work, they essentially load them up at like 100% usage for months and months, if not years, however long the card will last. So those things have more wear and tear on them than any normal card. So be careful if it comes from like eBay or something like that. It could be something, there could be a lot more miles on the card than you could be thinking.
They need love too, Ben.
No, they don't. So with that being said, Nathan, we're going to wrap it up here. Anything you want to highlight over on your website? Obviously, you have the State of Gaming. You have... Yep.
Yeah, there's going to be some more. There's going to be some fun podcast episodes coming out in the next week or so. Probably this weekend if we can get our schedules aligned. We're going into a really busy season. I think we're going into the movie. Well, the movie season shifted. The gaming season's about to heat up. November is usually the big time. A lot of fun stuff, Ben. And you know what? We will try to keep it fun.
Perfect. Okay, so everyone, computeramerica.com, once again, we'll have the show notes there. And of course, you can check us out on YouTube for the video archive and wherever podcasts are heard for the podcast version. And we'll have links to all the stories as well as our guest website. Nathan, until next month, we're going to have a lot more hardware to talk about, a lot more games, movies, just everything. So, Nathan, thank you for joining us. Everyone else, we hope you had fun. Have a great weekend. Everyone, be safe. Do something fun. See you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.